The reflection today is called Welcoming the Stranger. And in just a few short sentences, Emily Towns tells us that we are challenged to think more deeply about what is meant by welcoming one another, about discipleship and mission, and about extending genuine hospitality. We know that hospitality was not only important to Jesus, it was at the very heart of his ministry. And in his instructions to his disciples, he is so focused on welcoming the stranger that in other versions of the Bible, you will find that he uses the word welcome 6 times in 3 sentences. Mission and social justice are at the heart of who we are as people of faith. Many of us make a commitment to community outreach and action, reaching out to a community in need and working to transform it. The mission is also about hospitality. The Latin word hospes, from which hospitality is derived, means both host and guest. We all need to know how to serve and be served. Being sent out by Christ means to deepen our practice of welcoming the stranger, feeding the hungry, helping people who are under-resourced meet their needs. And when we do so, we all benefit. All of this gives us pause to ask ourselves, how are we doing in our churches? Are we inwardly focused on our survival? Or do we open ourselves to the possibility that our needs are best met when we place ourselves in service to others? In our communities of faith, we think of ourselves as a place where everyone is welcome. In the hymn, "Let Us Build a House," we sing, "All are welcome in this place." Our church signage clearly states, "All are welcome." We believe that we are a caring and sharing church, and for the most we are, with each other. But this passage invites us to examine the quality of the welcome that we offer or extend to one another, as well as the stranger in the church. Have you ever walked into a church and had no one stop to acknowledge your presence or introduce themselves? Have you ever had greeters shake your hand without any eye contact or just hand you the bulletin without any engagement? It takes a lot of courage to walk into a church alone. Newcomers and visitors alike are searching for connection, hope, and sanctuary. There's a story of a woman who had been visiting churches, and she found herself coming to church alone and leaving alone without anyone speaking to her or greeting her. And her prayer for her next visit to yet another church was simply, "I only pray that someone speaks to me today." Communities of faith aspiring to welcoming the stranger must regularly ask, how are we doing at welcoming and at teaching others to welcome genuinely? And in these pandemic and new normal times, how are we being called to expand our ministry of hospitality within our community of faith and beyond? Pre-coronavirus, vibrant and thriving communities of faith practice the rule of 3. It's a practice whereby you talk only to those with whom you don't know or don't know well for the first 3 minutes after worship ends. This is key, for that is the time when people without connection often choose to leave, and they may never return. Sometimes we forget that churches offer something that people need. In a pandemic world where loneliness is reported to be on the rise, people from all walks of life, in every stage of life, newcomers and visitors, are looking for connections and a place of belonging. We all need to know that we are not alone, that we are surrounded by a community of grace, that we are given hope that sustains us in the testing times of life's journey. Everyone needs a sense of purpose and a sense of fulfillment that blesses them and stretches them and lifts them up out of their own preoccupation. We all need to know how to serve and be served. So radical hospitality is very different from the ordinary practice of hospitality. It exceeds expectations, goes the extra mile, and it takes welcoming the stranger to the max. It's ordinary people offering the absolute utmost of themselves, their creativity, their abilities, and their energy to offer the gracious invitation and reception of Christ to others. I can't think of a better Canadian example than when the incredible people of Gander, Newfoundland welcomed 7,000 stranded travelers to the Rock. The townspeople sprang into action, for these people needed to be housed and fed, clothed and comforted after their planes had been diverted because of the September 2011 terrorist attacks. The plain people were welcomed into the islanders' homes, and even the 19 animals in cargo were tended by the local SPCA. Their example of radical hospitality was a reminder of the capacity for human kindness in even the darkest times. And it brings to mind William Butler Yeats's conviction that there are no strangers here, only friends that you haven't met. Indeed, 9 years later, lasting friendships have resulted from that experience. Come From Away is the Canadian musical that tells the true story of what happened in that week. And it truly is a celebration of the best that we can be. In their active giving and in their compassionate sharing, Christ was made known and the gospel came alive. Leo Buscaglia once said, "Too often we underestimate the power of a touch, a smile, a kind word, a listening ear, an honest compliment, or the smallest act of caring, all of which have the potential to turn a life around." We must never think that what we have to offer is insignificant. I received this homemade postcard in the mail this week. One of the members of my home congregation has been caregiving at home. She has no computer access to participate in our Zoom worship services, so she sat her creative self down and crafted personal messages to people whom she was missing. The message read, "The shortest distance between people is a smile. Just a small note to brighten your day. Stay safe." That small act of kindness not only made me smile, it made a huge difference in my day that day. The simple, basic acts of kindness we perform in genuine welcome of one another are all that God asks of us. And Jesus reminds us that whoever welcomes you welcomes me. I remember a Minute for Mission story from several years ago of a church on the east side of Vancouver. They knew that giving a person a drink of water can be the best welcome of all, and that it was a way of showing God's love. They also offered dignity washrooms, foot baths, and a clean pair of socks, which were gratefully received after trudging all day long on pavement on a hot summer day. Closer to home, Dr. Dahid Dosani is a street doctor in Toronto who serves the homeless population. This pandemic has made homelessness visible, and he has seen criminalization of homeless people increasing, with many of them getting ticketed by bylaw officers. With nowhere else to go because respites and shelters and drop-ins have had to reduce their services and hours, people who are homeless are inhabiting parks and other public spaces where they are not welcomed. Dr. Desani urges us to not turn away from the needs of this vulnerable population. In this time of social and economic unrest, as we move into stage 2 of reopening, some have asked, where is God in all of this? God is right here, inspiring us to change, that our prayers be more than words, but actions. May we be ready to become faithful disciples. Amen. Our next hymn is from Voices United 681, Where Cross the Crowded Ways of Life.